Hey everybody, it's Markwell Cade with Cade Mark Law, your favorite neighborhood lawyer, back with another free resource for you. Today, we're going to talk about copyrights and fair use, the 4 elements of fair use. Fair use is an affirmative defense to copyright infringement. It gives you the right to use a copyright owner's work without permission under certain circumstances. Section 107 of the Copyright Act allows fair use in circumstances for commentary, criticism, news reporting, scholarly reports, and education, and certain other circumstances. The idea behind the doctrine of fair use is to prevent a rigid application of copyright law that would stifle creativity. It gives creators an opportunity to use copyright owners' works without their permission, so long as they aren't depriving them of their rights. It allows creators to use copyrighted works in a way that doesn't deprive the original owner of their ownership. Fair use is a product of the First Amendment and the right to free speech and free expression in conjunction with copyright law. It wants people to be able to express themselves in a way that's freely, but also not deprive owners of their ownership of copyrights. It's an interesting relationship between the two, but fair use exists as a direct product of the dichotomy between the First Amendment and copyright law. Now, as I mentioned, fair use is an affirmative defense, which means you are still infringing. You just have a justifiable, legal excuse to do so. This also means that when you take a copyright owner's work without permission and then claim fair use, the burden is on you as the infringer to prove it. Now, importantly, there are no legal rules concerning how many musical notes you can take, how many quotes you can use or words you can take from a specific article, how much of a photograph or what percentage of a work is okay under fair use. But there are 4 elements that can help you understand the fair use defense. These 4 elements are used by courts whenever there is an infringement issue and fair use is at play. The first element that goes into a fair use analysis is the purpose and the character of your use of the original work, including whether you're using it for a nonprofit purpose or for a commercial purpose. Now, commercial purpose just means you're selling the item in some way, but this isn't the end-all be-all. The important consideration in this first element is whether you're actually conducting a socially beneficial activity as outlined by fair use. Are you providing criticism? Are you providing commentary or parody or education of some sort? And the more likely you're doing this, the more likely it will be fair use. Other considerations are whether or not you're selling it, and generally speaking, if you're not selling it, a court will look at it as more fair use, but that doesn't mean that you can't sell the item. Think of things like South Park. They get away with a lot, and that is a for-profit commercial show. But the benefit they provide society in their commentary and criticism outweighs and allows such that this first element is often satisfied. The second factor that goes into the fair use analysis is the nature of the copyrighted work you're using. Is it published or unpublished? Is it public or not public? Is it a factual thing or more of a creative thing? More factual things will lend less protections and be allowed to use as more fair use, especially in education circumstances. Whereas more creative works and unpublished works will get less of that fair use treatment, because an author that has a creative work or an unpublished work has more say over how much of that should be protected and used. Generally speaking, the U.S. Copyright Office wants to gatekeep creative ideas, not facts, which means that the more likely you're using facts, the more likely it will be fair use to use those facts in education or scholarly research or reporting. And also, this second element isn't as strong as the other elements, as the nature of copyrighted works don't generally vary that much, and something that's highly creative will be more protected than something that's less creative. It's just a general rule of thumb. The third element of a fair use analysis is the amount of the original work that was used. Courts want to know, how much of this original work did you take? Was it a small percentage? Was it a large percentage? Was it a small percentage that you transformed a lot? Was it a large percentage that looks pretty much the same? Was it a large percentage that looks very different from the original work? They want to know how much of the original work was used in relation to your work. This is an important element, and oftentimes, the more creative elements you take from a copyright owner's work, the more likely it won't be fair use. Now, unfortunately, this is a sliding scale. There's no percentage of a work that you can take and automatically claim as fair use and get away with, and there's no amount that you can take that is automatically not fair use. You have to just be careful, case by case, circumstance by circumstance. And remember, the more creative elements you're taking from an original owner's work, the less likely it will be fair use. There's no percentage where you'll be safe. So come up with as many of your own original elements as possible. Transform that work as much as possible. This is how you can claim fair use and get away with this third element. The final element in a fair use analysis is the effect on the market of the original work. Did you devalue the original work? Are there going to be less people buying or in the market for that original work now that your work exists? This is something that is kind of taken in tandem with that first element, but it is an important element that the Copyright Office or copyright infringement judges consider. Fair use is a very, very tricky and complex area of copyright law. Seek a lawyer if you have further questions. Seek a lawyer if you need help. Seek a lawyer if you're thinking about taking a copyright owner's work and then claiming fair use. It's always best to ask for permission from copyright owners, but sometimes you can't get it. And in those instances, fair use could be a great way and a great tool for you to gain access to a protected work. Just be careful. Consider each of these elements, and when in doubt, seek a lawyer. That's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Copyright and Fair Use, the 4 elements of fair use. I am Markwell Cade with Cade Mark Law, your favorite neighborhood lawyer. Protect your brand, grow your business. Stay frosty, my friends. We'll see you next time. We hope this was helpful.